Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm Michael LeBlanc, your host. The Voice of Retail is produced in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada and is presented by Hale, a performance marketing partner trusted by brands like ASICS, Sage, and Orange Theory to scale with focus and impact. Elisa, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How about you?
I'm fantastic. I can't believe that I have almost made it to 500 episodes, and you and I don't think have been on the mic together. We've known each other for a bunch of years, and whether it's crisscrossing at conferences or seeing you around the industry. So thanks so much for taking some time to join me on the pod.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Michael.
Now, where am I finding you today? Are you in the home office, I think, which is probably Toronto, but I know you travel a lot. So where am I finding you?
Yep, today I am at our 18 York office, which is our Canadian headquarters.
So you and I obviously know each other a little bit, but there may be many, many people who know of you but don't perhaps know enough. Tell me about yourself. How did you get into this line of work, and tell me about what you do for a living?
Yeah, sure. I feel like I've always kind of been in the retail space since I was a little kid. My grandmother was a fashion designer, and she owned a few ladies' clothing stores in Canada and in Toronto, and she spent a lot of time with me talking about fabric and sewing and design. And so I kind of fell in love with retail at a very young age. But coming out of school, I applied for a job at PwC. It was a competition at the time, case studies and everything. And I started to work at PwC in their consulting practice. And about a year and a half after I joined the what's now the consumer markets team. That includes retail as well as CPG. And I just kind of grew up in that space, kind of from an associate kind of all the way up. And then I did leave for a few years. I went to IBM, where I stayed in the same consumer markets fold. And then I was at Loblaws as an executive for a number of years. And then I came back to PwC, funny enough, to help them build out their consumer markets team, which I'm now the national leader of across all of our lines of service.
So the consulting world keeps pulling you back in. So the consulting gig isn't for everybody. What do you love about it? Is it the variety, the challenge, and it's a service business? Are you just oriented that way versus a corporate role, or any thoughts on that?
I like both the corporate role, to be honest, as well as the consulting role. But what's exciting for me in the consulting role is that there's constant change going on. So you can never really kind of sit back for too long. Otherwise you'll be outdated. Like, I used to say in the old days, you wanted to be a chapter ahead, right? Thinking more of a physical book. I guess it still applies now. You always need to be a chapter ahead on what's going on from a consulting perspective. And for me, that's exciting because I like to constantly learn. I'm very curious about things. I want to know how things work. How do you break it down? How does it kind of come back together? So it's just a constant learning, constant challenge, and going into different clients and finding out where their pain points are, and thinking about solutions and new and kind of innovative ways of dealing with things, because although some principles are the same and some of the core functions inside retail, right? Like, marketing, but marketing's changed substantially, over the last 20 years and will continue to change. So yeah, I guess that's what is exciting for me about the consulting business.
So PwC, 3 letters of the alphabet. I can't imagine anybody listening to this pod would not know, but they may not know everything about your scope and scale. And tell us a little bit about that. And why do retailers choose you versus your fellow consulting groups?
Good question. Well, PwC is a global company. We have offices in, I think, 150 countries around the world. And here in Canada and in specific countries around the world, we have pretty strong consumer markets clients and teams on the PwC side that service those markets. So in some countries or regions, this consumer market space is relatively small, but in other regions like Canada, US, certain parts of Europe, UK, France, Italy, Germany, we have pretty substantial presence. And, we help consumer markets clients with a number of services from audit to risk, to tax, to mergers and acquisitions, and then the whole gamut of consulting services across their business, whether they're strategic, advisory, or technical in nature.
So it's a bit of a people business, not a bit. It's a people business, but it's powered by infrastructure. Is that the way you get clients? Really, is you can combine your expertise, your team's expertise, and then you've got a global reach and resources to tap into. Is that kind of summarize the elevator pitch about why choose PwC?
Yeah, and we have a kind of a tagline for it. We call it human-led, tech-enabled.
All right, let's turn our attention to this new 2025 Canadian Holiday Outlook. I don't think it's the first one your organization has published. So I just want to, what's the tradecraft behind it? Who do you talk to? What's your purpose? And, give us a sense of where and how the data is collected. And then we'll kind of start peeling back the onion and find out what you have to say about this holiday.
Yeah, so we've been doing this for a number of years now. I'm not exactly sure how many. I'm going to say at least 4 or 5 that we've been doing it for. Could be a little bit longer. And what we do is we have a set of questions that are we think are relevant and important to our retail and consumer markets clients in terms of what they would be interested in knowing about how consumers are planning to spend money over the holiday season. And so we put those together. We go to market with them. The Holiday Outlook is produced in both Canada and the U.S. So we have a lot of similar questions between the two, but then we have specific Canadian questions, and then we go out to a Canadian sample of clients, which of consumers that we look at across different demographics. So we try to break down, 50-50, male, female, different age demographics, as well as representation across the provinces in our country. And that's where the data's collected from, and then we put it together into the report, which we hope will be, informative and interesting to our retail and consumer markets clients.
It's the timing is always interesting, right? Because you want to get people thinking when they're thinking about holiday. But, of course, retailers have planned their holiday for many, many months, some, a year ago. So what do you hope that retailers do with the information? And there is still, we were talking about the changing nature of digital marketing. There's still some things, many levers you can pull, through the marathon that is holidays. Is that what you kind of hope to that retailers take away from the report?
Yeah, I think that there are some things that can be acted on in the short term, perhaps around some pricing and promotions, but we wouldn't put anything in there. So, most of us who are working on the actual report, have a pretty strong retail and consumer background. So we don't put things into the report that we know logistically are going to take, 6 months or 9 months. We're not going to say, you should put in a whole new assortment in this particular area of your store because, to tell you that now in October for December is not really relevant because nobody would be able to react that quickly. So we do temper it, by, what's realistic. We think it's also helpful, like I said, in some of that short-term planning, but also perhaps as the retailers and consumer companies look back at the season and what they had planned, versus some of the data that we had there. And hopefully it will give them some insights into planning going forward as well.
Like a little bit of a touchstone. Okay, here's what the report said. Here's what we saw. We either did or did not align to that. Maybe are we overperforming or underperforming versus the rest of the market? So that's an interesting perspective. All right, let's hit a couple of the key observations. Now you're talking about consumer spending less. I think it was 10% less this season. And, we all know that, affordability has moved back to the number one issue for Canadians. Now, the good news is, when I talk to retailers after a really rocky Q1, they had a pretty good spring and a good summer. And are you thinking that it's year over year pullback, or that the momentum isn't going to continue through the holidays? Talk about what you learned from the report.
Yeah, so this is comparing the spend intention last year versus this year. And so we did see a 10% decline. But when if you factor out COVID and, maybe the following year, what you would see is that this year, the decline, like on an average basis, is just down a few points. But from a hard number perspective, last year to this year is 10%. But if you kind of take out some of, I'll call it a little bit of the noise in the numbers,
sure.
Then you just see a mild decline. And I think it is related to the economy, to consumers' discretionary spend. And I know we haven't seen it hit too hard yet, but I think that as we're going into Christmas and beyond, that's where I think we're going to start to see some of the impacts, with some job loss, with the tariffs and things like that.
Well, I mean, right. I mean, it's Stellantis pulling their plant. I mean, there's got to be super, super high risk around Ontario for the auto industry. You got canola farmers not shipping canola to China. I mean, there's lots of footprints in the sand that say the economy is going to be going through some challenging years. Now, there's also some data that we've got record unemployment in our youth, and so that's reflected. I saw Gen Z customers planning to spend 34% less, and millennials 11% less. Big numbers. And how do you think retailers should react? I mean, it feels like, they're still going to buy gifts, but what do you think the retailers should do about this?
I think that the Gen Z is still going. They are still going to buy gifts. I think they've told us is that they're going to restrict it a little bit more to their families and less maybe to their friends and themselves. So they've also said that they're going to start to cut back and start to save earlier in the year to. So that they have some money available to do that. But I think that the Gen Z was kind of hit with the job loss that you said, and perhaps by the age that they're in, they might have, not so recently maybe moved away from home, and they have additional costs that they might not have had a year or two, right? Like they might have rent costs, they might have car costs. And so I think that's also impacting their ability to spend, different when you're still living at home versus, having your own place with, electrical and hydro and
life
all those
stage stuff. Paying for all the platforms and all those door dashing and Uber eating that they seem to do. Right. Conversely to the economy, they spend a lot of money to get a bottle of Tylenol some days. Let's talk about Canada. So I'm sure you've been watching with great interest, as many of us have, this kind of nationalistic movement. I mean, you and I have been in retail a long time. When I was at Hudson's Bay, it was a fantasy that people would buy, because you're just Canadian. But your survey still says that Canadians, there's still a tailwind there. They would pay more for a made in Canada product. Not that there's a ton of those. I guess this gets to my question between this. And this is kind of a qualitative question, not a quantitative question, is, stated intent versus action. And how do you interpret this information? I kind of see it as like a little tailwind, but I'm not sure how many Canadians really, other than, I guess, the alcohol sector, but that's a little bit their hands tied behind their back. How do you conceive of this? Like, what do you think of this?
Yeah, so this is a topic that's come up quite a bit. It's it's a part of the reason why we had these questions asked in the survey, and there's always a difference between intent and what people actually do, and what's in the survey is based on intent, right?
Sure.
But we've been tracking this for at least the last 2 or 3 years, and what's interesting is that number of respondents who told us that they would prefer to buy local. Now we specifically said made in Canada for this year. Previously, we've asked about local. That number
Local's
keeps
always confused me. That's always confused me as a question, because local could be, I'm like 2 doors away from Costco. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure when you and I say local, I'm not sure that's what people think. Oh, yeah, I'm shopping my neighborhood. I'm not driving far. You know, like, I always think there's a bit of noise and signal, and even in that parsing of the question. Yeah.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And this year, we did specifically ask about made in Canada. But what we have seen is that the number is going up in terms of their intention. And the number is also going up in terms of their acknowledgement that the cost might be higher and their willingness to pay. Now, what we did see in the willingness to pay that was interesting to your point earlier is that it's more so in the older generation. So if you look at the 4 blocks, Gen Z, Millennial, Gen X, and Baby Boomer, it's the Gen X and especially, but some of the Baby Boomers that were willing to pay more.
Sure. Well, they have the money. I guess it makes it bit, although their houses are worth a lot more than they were before,
Right. Yeah. Well, and we're at different life stages too, right?
Yeah,
like the Gen Z
100%.
who's, might have just moved out and, has to pay rent and electrical and hydro for the first time. The Gen X are probably at the height of their careers right now, and probably, top of their pay scale for whatever type of work that they're in.
It's a luxury to be able to sometimes make these decisions. Let's talk about stores. So there's this kind of canard that stores are back, but you and I both know stores never went anywhere. And you could see it in your report. 56% ranked the ability to see and touch as a key factor. I want to flip the question a little bit. When I think about e-commerce and we don't have great numbers in Canada, as you know, so we kind of all guess a little bit, but we can assume that they're kind of the growth is similar to what it is, let's say, in the U.S. for this argument or for this question. But it's really, e-commerce growth is not growing. I mean, and some attribute that to a lack of innovation. I wonder if it's like, what are you hearing from your clients? It feels like, man, there's a lot of costs and disruptions in the door, getting on the doorstep for the supply chain. It's expensive, and maybe retailers are like, I just want them to go to the store because I don't make a lot of money online. And I know it's it's not even a great way to ask the question because it's kind of a distinction with a difference. Consumers don't think of it that way. But what do you think about the role of stores and e-commerce coming together for this holiday and beyond?
Yeah, I think that to me, and this goes back to what you said before, Michael, like you and I have, been talking about this and thinking about this for many years. The consumer, I mean, even though online is great, when it comes to certain products like apparel, food in particular, people want to be tactile. They want to go into the store. They want to, feel what the product looks like, try it on. How many times, like, if you've ever tried to order shoes online, right? It's challenging because, well, in this brand I'm a 7, in this brand I'm a 7.5, or maybe I'm an 8. And so you end up sometimes ordering 2 pairs and having to return one, which is not great for the consumer, but also really not great for the retailer, right?
Terrible.
Yeah.
You know who does that? You know who does that really well in that category? I don't know if you've seen this, but Hoka. And I've seen these in a couple of different places, but they've got a digital scale in their stores. You put your feet on, it measures your feet, and then it asks you a few questions. You lie about how far you're going to run and that kind of stuff. And then it suggests the perfect shoe. And I used that and then ordered it online, and they nailed it. So I think there's something there with this. Get them in the store. I didn't consummate the purchase in the store, but this intersection between these two things, I think is pretty powerful, right? And I love your idea about, different purposes. I think, I've been married a long time, so I never know what to get my wife. So I go to a store and just wander around until inspiration hits me. I think there's a big role for that for retailers, yeah?
I think there is. And I think also during the holidays, especially, it's kind of like a special time of year that people really look forward to, whether they celebrate Christmas or not. It's just fun to be in the mall. There's a lot going on. There's a lot,
Lots of energy.
retailtainment going on, which you can do all year in your stores. But it just seems like because everybody's kind of on the same wave there, right? Like it's the holidays all at one time. So I think it makes it fun. to be in the mall, to walk around, to see the big lineup, to sit on Santa's lap, right? Like it's, or get a picture with Santa, right?
Okay,
Like
I know where you're going to be at Yorkdale. I know what you're going to be doing. You're getting that holiday pick for your colleagues. We'll be right back after these messages. The Voice of Retail is brought to you by Hale, the partner behind some of the fastest growing DTC and retail brands in North America. Hale is recognized for senior teams who cut out the noise and keep their focus on what matters most, growth. Their approach is based on outcomes, not hours. They are selective with who they partner with, bringing speed, accountability, and a clear strategy to every engagement. Paid media, content, performance, all of it connects directly to real results. That's why brands like A6 Sage and Orange Theory choose Hale to help them scale. Learn more at wearehale.com. Last couple of questions for you, and thank you for your time, very generous. I don't know, what are we in now? 20 minutes into the conversation, we haven't said the words AI yet, and it feels like this is going to be the first real AI consumer-led holiday, like the first of many. Not really, I don't want to spend much time talking about how retailers are using AI, but how consumers are using AI. What are you hearing from retailers? Are they starting to grasp the importance of this, that things are changing and how consumers are discovering and shopping, soon to be shopping, I suspect?
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of answer it in two parts. So the first part and what we had in the study was, we specifically asked about opportunities for retailers, and what came back was around using AI for part of the customer experience. If you need help with something or you're calling customer service, and overall, what the respondents told us is that when it comes to certain items like higher value items or questions that they don't think are going to be pre-programmed, they really want to talk to a person. And AI isn't quite there yet. And so that's a bit of a gap where I think something that retailers could think about and work on. Now, on the other side, the second part there is that, there's one that retailers can work on around personalization. But the big part for me is the shopping assistant component, right? So when you're talking about, it's your wife's birthday or, someone special's birthday that, you want to figure out a plan, having this shopping assistant tool, and there's a number of them out on the market right now, and it will give you like unbelievable amount of information and insight into different products, and and you can direct it to where you want to go. If you want to say no apparel, look at jewelry, or look at travel, whatever, and the different options that is there now from an AI perspective, and the AI tools will know you as well as what you're planning to buy. I think that is kind of just in the early stages, but has so much potential to
potential and risk. I think, right? I see it also as risk, like it's another somebody else between you and the customer, another intermediary if we're not careful. Yeah.
Unless you have it connected into, so without getting technical, so unless you are using a platform for personalization that will link into these different AI shopping assistants, right? So when you use it and it goes to, say, apparel and to your store, then it links into your customer, like me as a shopper, Elisa's, personalization, and kind of connects the two together automatically.
Okay. I think we could have a whole other podcast on this stuff because it's evolving pretty quick, pretty interesting. But last question for you: what I can't have you on the mic without asking about broader trends in retail that you're hearing from, whether it's the grocers or the hard goods retailers or whoever. Like, what are the top kind of issues that are making your phone ring or filling up your inbox? What are retailers looking for help?
Yeah, there's a lot of transformation going on. There's a lot of retailers and CPG companies looking at their technology right now, and realizing that they don't necessarily need to take a little step forward. They need to take a giant step forward. So quite a bit on the retail technology. And then related to that around data privacy and security. So making sure that, consumers can shop with them seamlessly without having to worry about, data breaches and things like that. And then
that's going to happen though, right? I mean, that's if not when, right? these days,
yeah,
right?
But you need to have some protections in place. And even if you do have a data breach, I think it's about being transparent to your customer base and how quickly you can resolve it and get things back up and running. So you need to have those plans in place for what that's going to look like from a contingency perspective, and how quickly you can get back online and reassure your consumers that you're back and stable.
Are you getting those weird texts, by the way? Like, everybody I know is getting these weird texts. I get 10 of them a day. Like, and it's like, do you have a minute? Hey, I was thinking about dinner tonight. Like, come on.
Those are bizarre. The last one though the last one that I tell you also, Michael, is supply chain. Also seeing quite a bit on diversification of supply. Where retailers were just heavily involved in one country or a particular region, looking a little broader, as well as having a good understanding of how their goods are moving throughout the country to get to consumers through, whether it's through online channel or into their retail stores. So a lot of looking at, how to fine tune their supply chains from a cost perspective, but more so from an efficiency perspective.
Okay. Fascinating. Well, it's all been great. I mean, we just barely scratched the surface. So how do people get in touch with you or get a copy of the report and learn more?
I usually just put in PwC Canada and it comes up when I'm trying to find it. You can find the report there. And then at the bottom of the report, it says contact us, and all my information is there.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it's great to have you on the mic. It's exciting days, lots of disruption, and I'm sure it's keeping you busy. It's a fascinating time to be in your space. And thanks so much for sharing a bit and jumping on the podcast and joining me on The Voice of Retail.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael, for having me.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, follow on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically each week. And be sure and check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast with Steve Dennis and the Global E-Commerce Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, Senior Retail Advisor, Keynote Speaker. If you want more content or to chat, follow me on LinkedIn. Safe travels, everyone.